Hey folks, the Desert Artist here. I wanted to kind of give you an update of where I was at, what I've been doing. I've been concentrating mostly on my steampunk stuff. I was able to get some old mechanical calculators from a hardware store, and I got them pretty cheap. Got a lot of really cool I guess you could say items to work with. Quick box with you here. Now I got two of them. They were identically the same. Well, one was newer than the other one. It had, as I was taking it apart, I noticed some slight differences in between them, but they basically had the same sort of makeup. I could tell when I was sorting through the pieces and the parts after I took them all apart that there were some things that kind of looked the same, like this here. These all kind of slide off and on through this little shaft here. So I put them together so I could kind of keep them in pairs, because as pairs you can use them as arms or legs or a pair of eyes or a pair of ears, whatever. I try to maintain mostly single items. With single items you got one nose, so you're gonna have one part that's gonna look nosy, and then you got other parts that are like this that are bodies that are singular, but they got cool gears and stuff on them. This was one part that was in the inside of a motor that was inside the mechanical calculator, I guess you could call it, because it was basically old school 1960s-ish type calculator. Let me go get the body of it for you and show you what it looks like. So this is basically what it looked like. There was this base part to it that is kind of cool. I can use this as a platform for several different things, like have a diorama type thing. I've got holes and screws and attachments that I can attach different things and have them as a focal point. It's fairly large, it's decent, will hold the weight nice and square. And here's what they look like. It has this little part in here that went together. Like I said, I took it all apart with all the screws and the bolts and everything, so this is kind of what it looks like. And it had all these little numbers here that you could punch and do the addition over here. I've got the little button. Looks like this is part of it here. This is part of it. It kind of went with, you could hit it with your hand here for the addition, the multiplication, and the percent, and all that stuff, all worked out. Here's the one I didn't take it totally apart. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I don't know what I'm going to do with any of it. So you can see where it has the cool little buttons that can go back and forth. I don't know. You don't know what you're going to do with it until you know what you're going to do with it. That's the whole part of accumulating an inventory of steampunk type stuff. It may not seem steampunky at the time, but it will end up being steampunky in the end. Let me show you some more here. This is that big gnarly motor, and it might actually work. I don't know, because when I took it apart and I plugged it in, it kind of stunk when it like it was burning a motor or something. One of them had a mouse nest in it, so I mean, you know, it's just, you never know what's going to be in it. There's a pulley that runs the thing that goes across the top, looked like a typewriter head. There was two pulleys, so they've got an internal spring right? So you can wrap this around here, and this turns. It's got a spring in the inside. You hear it? It's got a spring in the inside, so you can use it to pull stuff. You know, when you pull something out, that it's just cool. To me, it just seems like it's a useful item to be used for steampunky type stuff. I've got a whole toolbox down here of stuff amongst my other toolboxes that you see here. These are all full of stuff that are. Here's something else that came out of the calculators. All these little things that kind of maneuver and move around. Maybe I'll make like an old lawnmower guy with pushing a lawnmower and have this on there as a rake or something. I don't know. But I've got two of those, and then here's another one that was really cool that came out from the inside. And this has got kind of cool mobility here, and it's got these little transition pieces here. Now I've got all the bolts and the screws and the nuts and all the cambers and cams and switches, and this is it was hard to take apart now, because I mean there was a lot of stuff I had to heat up with a heat gun, because it was so old that it looked like when I took it apart and when I unscrewed it without using the heat gun, when I was able to unscrew some of the bolts that were really hard because I had to use a flathead screwdriver, as it kind of looked kind of like a wax that was in there that was holding them tight. It might have been the grease that was on them. I mean, you can smell it now. It's really stinky. It smells like old industrial grease. And as I was taking it apart, it looked like it was falling apart like old wax. You know how you would scrape wax across? It looked like that. It was kind of white and chalky, but you heat it up with a heat gun and then it melted. So it made it a little easier to be able to unscrew the screws and the bolts and stuff. Like I said, I don't know what I'm going to do with these things, but I thought it was just kind of cool that it had all this mobility stuff, that maybe I'll use this as a body or use this as a tool of some sort. And I've got two of these as well, so I can use these as legs or motors, or perhaps a car or something. You know, I can use this as the front legs of a car or a walking spider, or who knows what I could use it for. There, I've got another pair of these too, which these are kind of cool. This was, I don't want to push it too much, I'll make it fall apart. I had to take this out. This was from the little calculator fingers that were in the inside of the calculator that I guess maneuvered certain levers and stuff that made it, when you push the buttons, it would calculate and push a lever and move something else to click something else to give it a percentage reading or whatever. I mean, it was really complex now. And I've got two of those as well. So here's some other ones. You can see there was one part in there. Now, in the inside of these, you can see here that a lot of these were connected with pins that were, these shafts right here are solid, and then they drilled holes through these shafts, and then they put these pins in here to set them in, so that the cog here, that you see the cog would lift, when it turned and lifted, it lifted another lever that manipulated the math some sort of way. And I got two of these, and like I said, they're a little bit different. You can see how they're different. That one's got a slot in it and one doesn't. So these were the differences in the models. They were similar, but yet they were different. You know, a couple after generations of making these things, alterations that can be made to make them better, and therefore have to keep the salesman busy to sell new items. Here's some of the knobs that I got off of them. They've got little set screws in them, you can see there. So I can use these as wheels or heads or something. There's a lot of cogs that are in here, a lot of gears, and a lot of things I don't even know what to use them for, but there was a lot of pieces and parts that were in here that can be used for something different. Another thing was these little electrical contacts that can be used or for eyebrows or frames or something to hold a lens or something. There was a lot of cool stuff in here. Like these actually held the receipt tape, so that when they printed out the ticket, it would hold it in line so it wouldn't come out. And I've got like 3 or 4 of these. Have got a lot of stuff in it. These are little levers. These are the ones, because I had to sort them out separately to where I had to figure out a way to separate them. And these are the pieces of metal that weren't flat, that had holes that I could use as a pivot for an elbow or fingers or something, because when I guess I make my sculptures, I want them to be some sort of a person or an animal or something animatronic. A lot of these pieces and parts have internal springs and some of them do not. A lot of them are just pivot joints that have a cool direction to them. Some of them have little, like this one here looks like a little wrench on it or something. Maybe I can use that for an eyeball or something, because it's got what looks like an eyebrow on the top. So, you know, I mean, I've got actually literally hundreds of pieces out of this thing here. And here's the other end of that piece that I just showed you earlier with the cog and the cam that was on it. You can see where I cut it off right there on the end. And it's got other cool stuff on it that maneuvers around. I'll probably have to heat it up with a heat gun in order to be able to release some of it, but you can see where there's a lot of pins have been driven through here, so they're not really maneuverable unless I put another piece of what I just showed you. A lot of these on here or on this one here, and then I've got that look like little C-pins, C-washers that I guess just slip on. There's a little groove in some of them. You can see a little groove right here, and that puts so I can fit something on here and then put that C-washer on there, and then it holds it on. A lot of really cool looking items that I got off of here. Here's one that's got a spring on it, so a spring that goes both ways all the way around a full 180 degrees, and you know, I can probably use that for something. Maybe this can be a body part, a full body for something. Once again, I don't know, but I've got a lot of parts to work with that I can work with on doing other stuff. Now remember my sewing machine violin sculpture? You can see here that it didn't turn out very well. There was a part in here that where I have this now, because right now he's going to be remade. So right now I have a bolt came loose. I had a piece of, I can't really do it now because I don't have all the tools in order to be able to unscrew this. Right now this is an explosion proof cover for a junction box that I had laying around, and I was going to use that as a base. But I figure if I put this on here as a platform, I can put this little dude here that looked like some sort of a trophy or something, that his hands were broken off, and he came in a box of stuff that I got somewhere. I don't know where it was, but I thought I could put him right here because I still got the base part of this guy here, and I still kind of want him to be musical. You know, he's got levers and stuff that I can work with. And I don't know what I'm going to do here, but I'm going to drill this out and be able to put him here so he can be like a pirouette, so he can turn and be movable. In the meantime, I still have all the parts that I took off of here. I got this guy here, right? So I built another, like a guitar, out of another gravy ladle that I had laying around, and I just added a bunch of stuff to it to make it look like a musical instrument. And he's going to go on my other sculpture here, which is what I call a three-man band. He was originally over here and had a couple other pieces added to him, and I had to take him apart because I couldn't really work on him while he was mounted, so I had to dismount him so I could make it a little bit better, easier. I could make it easier for me to work on him, to get him to a point of completion, because he does have a mounting screw. So in other words, I will make a piece of art and then attach it to another piece of art. That way it kind of spreads out, you know, where you have a bunch of pieces of art that are mounted to another piece of art. So there's a bunch of little fine-tuned pieces that are mounted with a single screw, and he's going to be mounted here. I have this little part here that I threw on thinking, well, maybe I can use something from the adding machine to put on there, maybe as something else. And that didn't work out very well. So, you know, some things fall apart, and when the things fall apart and you don't have the correct piece in order to be able to put it back together, because the original piece that you put on wasn't the right piece that needed to be on there to keep it together. So right now I have two pieces entered into the VA competition. The art show there, I guess the artist's reception is on March 6th in Fayetteville, Arkansas, at the VA Center in the Coliseum. And I will be there. I'll be probably take some pictures of the other art that's there. I may run through with the camera to get kind of a visualization of how it goes. I was solicited by Art Ventures there to put in some of my pieces of art, but I didn't have a whole lot of art to put in there, so I didn't quite do it. I was going to put this guy in there, but I didn't feel it was qualified in order to be able to be in there. I needed some more fine-tuning, because, you know, if you put it in and there's one stray piece of copper that doesn't have a finish to it, then it doesn't, it's something that could be like a -1 on a test, right? So you want to make sure that you have all your questions answered in the test when you submit something. Otherwise it won't qualify as a piece of art. It looks unfinished. So that's one of the hard parts, is making sure that you able to finish everything without having a point where you can drive a bolt or you want to have all your holes filled with something, whether it's just a bolt or something colorful that goes around it, or otherwise it's an unfinished piece. So I just wanted to kind of give you guys an update of where I was at, what I was doing. As you can see, I've got the heater going in here, so it's a little frosty, it's wet outside. I don't know, it's supposed to be up to I guess 40 degrees, but it still maintains about 50 degrees in here with the heater running. I kind of wanted to show you guys what I've been doing recently. Taking apart those adding machines took quite a bit of energy, removing the facade and then unbolting all the screws and the nuts, because you want to make sure that they all fit together, because if they don't fit together, then it's going to be another item like this here that fell apart, and you end up with a stray Stradivarius floating around somewhere, which I can't seem to find. Right there, see it? Hanging up on the wall, there it is. That's my Stradivarius. So I just kind of wanted to give you guys an update where I was at, what I was doing. Y'all have a great day. This is Desert Artist. I'm gonna keep on keeping on here while I'm doing nothing, because that's basically what doing art is you're doing nothing. It's nothing really tangible except for to those who seek out your art.